My name is Megan Cole. I'm 31, and the night everything changed was supposed to be a celebration. It was my mom's birthday, early summer in Denver, Colorado, the air still warm enough for backyard dinners and laughter that carries past the fence. I'd spent days preparing that night. I ordered her favorite lemon cake, strung soft lights across the porch, even made a playlist of old country songs Dad loved. It felt good to do something kind for once that didn't involve paying another bill. Mom greeted me with a half smile, already holding a glass of wine. My sister Emma was scrolling on her phone, and Dad was tending the grill. I tried to ignore how distant it all felt. Maybe tonight, I thought, we could just be a normal family. When dinner was nearly done, I pulled out the gift I'd saved for months to buy, a pair of airline tickets for Mom and Dad. They'd talk for years about visiting Oregon's coast, watching the gray whales from the cliffs. I wanted them to have that. The table went quiet as I handed Mom the envelope. She opened it, gasped softly, then looked toward Emma. Before I could even breathe, my sister laughed. A sharp, cutting laugh that made my stomach drop. "Wow," she said, loud enough for everyone. "Buying forgiveness again, huh?" For a second, I didn't even understand. Then I saw it, the smirk spreading across her face, Dad trying to hide a grin, Mom shaking her head like she pitied me. And suddenly, the whole table was laughing. My ears rang. My chest felt hollow. That trip wasn't about forgiveness. It was gratitude. Love. I forced a smile, my throat tight. "Well," I said quietly, "good to know where I stand." Then I stood, picked up my purse, and walked away. The sound of their laughter followed me down the porch steps, echoing against the night air. Mom called after me, "Megan, don't do this!" Dad muttered something about me being dramatic. Emma's laughter didn't stop. I reached my car, hands trembling as I turned the key. Through the windshield, the backyard lights blurred like tiny stars, fading behind me as I drove off. Halfway home, I pulled over on an empty street and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. I could still hear them, laughing. All those years I'd helped them, all the times I paid rent, groceries, bills. Did it mean nothing? For the first time, I realized maybe I wasn't part of a family anymore. Maybe I was just their convenience. I looked at my phone, 3 unread messages already from Mom. "Please come back, let's talk." But I didn't answer. That night, something inside me cracked open, and I knew, no matter how much it hurt, that laughter had changed everything. Have you ever given everything to your family, money, time, love, only to be mocked for it? Tell me in the comments below. I read every story, and if you've ever walked away from people who didn't respect you, hit subscribe. You're not alone. I didn't sleep that night. The laughter kept looping in my head, like a bad song I couldn't turn off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. Mom's practiced disappointment, Dad's smirk, Emma's cruel grin. By morning, my phone was filled with messages. "Mom, you really embarrassed us last night." "Dad, you owe your sister an apology." "Emma, nothing. Just a photo she'd posted of the party with the caption, 'Family drama, but the ribs were good.'" I stared at that picture for a long time. There she was, smiling, glass raised, surrounded by the same people who used to tell me how responsible I was. The same people who'd come to me for help every single time life got hard. 3 years earlier, after Mom lost her job at the insurance office and Dad's hours at the plant were cut, I stepped in without thinking. I'd just landed a big client for the design firm I worked at, one project that finally made me feel like I was doing something right. So when Mom called crying about the mortgage, I said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And I did. For nearly a year, I paid their house note, every month, on time. When the electric bill spiked during that brutal winter, I covered that too. When Emma wanted to start her eco-candle business, I fronted her $3,000 for supplies and shipping. I skipped vacations, delayed buying a new laptop for work, and told myself it was temporary, that one day they'd get back on their feet. But they never did. Instead, helping them became expected, like a routine chore. If I didn't send the money right away, I'd get texts filled with guilt. Mom's favorites were, "We're family, sweetheart. Family takes care of each other." Sometimes she'd add, "You make more than we ever did. We're proud of you." It always started with love and ended with a dollar sign. The worst part, I believed her. I thought being generous meant being good, that maybe if I kept giving, they'd finally see me as more than the quiet one who never needed help. But generosity without gratitude is just slow bleeding. And by the time of that birthday dinner, I was drained. That morning, as I sat at my small kitchen table with a mug of coffee gone cold, I scrolled through my bank app. Over the past 30 months, I'd sent them more than $18,000. $18,000. Gone. And not once had anyone said thank you. I ran my thumb along the edge of the mug, tracing the chip near the handle, thinking how ridiculous it was that I hadn't even replaced it yet. Because every time I thought about buying something for myself, I heard Mom's voice. "Your sister really needs a little boost this month." It wasn't just money I'd given. It was peace, rest, the small joys of treating myself to a night out or a weekend off. I'd built a life around fixing theirs. That realization hit harder than their laughter. I wasn't angry yet, just empty. Like all the color had drained out of my world and left me with silence. I opened my messages again, scrolling to the top of our family group chat. Hundreds of texts. Not one asking how I was doing. Not one checking if I was okay. And for the first time, I let myself admit something I'd been avoiding for years. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I could give. That morning, the sunlight crept across my kitchen floor, soft and golden. It should have felt warm, but all I felt was tired. Tired of carrying everyone else's weight while pretending it didn't crush me. A few days after the birthday party, Mom called again. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Honey, we just need to clear the air. Can you come over Sunday? We'll all talk like adults." I almost said no, but some part of me, the part that still believed families could fix things if they just talked long enough, said yes. So, Sunday afternoon, I drove back to the house I'd helped keep, the one whose mortgage I'd paid, whose roof I'd repaired, whose power I'd kept on. When I stepped inside, the smell of cinnamon candles filled the air. It was familiar, almost comforting, until I realized how quiet the room was. Mom sat on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Dad stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Emma lounged in the corner, scrolling her phone like she couldn't care less. "Thanks for coming," Mom began, her tones sweet but strained. "We just want to understand what's going on. Families don't walk out over a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. That's what she called it. Not cruelty, not humiliation, just a tiny hiccup in an otherwise perfect family portrait. "I didn't walk out," I said. "I left because you laughed at me, for caring, for helping, for showing up." Dad snorted. "Megan, come on. You're too sensitive. You've always been that way." "I've also always been the one paying your bills," I shot back before I could stop myself. Mom's eyes widened. "I can't believe you'd throw that in our faces," she said, tears forming instantly. "We never asked you to." "Yes, you did, every month." Silence. Even Emma looked up from her phone, only to roll her eyes. "Oh my God, no one forced you, Meg. You just like feeling like a hero." That word again, hero. like helping them with some twisted form of ego instead of love. I felt the heat rising in my chest. Do you have any idea what I've done for you? I covered the mortgage, the utilities, your stupid candle business. Watch your tone, Dad barked. My tone? You should have watched your son's tone when he called me selfish at dinner. Emma's face twisted. It was a joke. Everyone laughed. You're the one who made it awkward. The words hit harder than I expected, not because of what she said, but because of how normal it felt to them. My humiliation was entertainment. Then my phone buzzed. A notification. Someone had tagged me in a Facebook post. I opened it, my stomach sinking. It was Emma. A long rant about some people who think money makes them better than family. A dozen laughing reactions. Comments from her friends, people I didn't even know, calling me cold, arrogant, selfish. I stared at the screen, my throat closing. I looked up at her. You posted about me? She shrugged. It's not like I used your name. Mom tried to intervene. She was just upset, honey. No, I said, my voice shaking now, but not from fear, from fury. You were all upset because the person you depended on finally said no. Dad's face hardened. You think you're better than us now? That was it. That line, so sharp and so familiar, finally cut the last thread holding me there. I think, I said slowly, I'm done being used. The room fell silent. Mom cried harder. Dad muttered something about ungrateful kids. Emma went back to her phone. I stood there, looking at the people I loved my entire life, and realized I didn't recognize them anymore. Then I turned and walked out the door, closing it behind me like sealing a chapter I'd reread too many times. Outside, the air was cold, crisp, and honest. I breathed it in until my lungs burned. For the first time, I wasn't angry at them. I was angry at myself for letting it go on so long. As I walked to my car, the weight of years pressed down on me, but beneath it, something else stirred. Not relief yet, not peace, just the faint spark of something that might someday become strength. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the same clothes from the family meeting. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint traffic outside my apartment window. My phone lay face down on the nightstand, buzzing every few minutes. Calls from Mom, texts from Dad, a few from Emma that I didn't bother to read. I stared at the floor for what felt like hours. The anger had burned out, leaving only ash. It wasn't the kind of sadness you cry through. It was the kind that settles quietly in your bones, heavy and cold. Maybe they were right, I thought. Maybe I was dramatic. Maybe I did make everything about me. Maybe this whole mess really was my fault. I walked to the bathroom and caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked older, tired, dull. The kind of face you see on someone who's been holding everything together for too long. I turned on the faucet, splashed water on my cheeks, but it didn't wash away the weight pressing down on my chest. I slid to the floor, knees pulled to my chest, and just breathed. In, out, trying to calm the noise in my head that kept repeating the same words. You're selfish, you're cold, you're ungrateful. It was their chorus, and I'd heard it so many times that part of me believed it. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to get out of bed. Emails from work piled up, the curtains stayed drawn, the air thick. I skipped breakfast, lunch, everything. For days, I moved like a ghost through my own apartment, showering, eating, sleeping, but not really living. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach clenched. Even silence felt cruel, because it meant they'd given up trying to fix it. I'd been needed my whole life, and now, without that role, I didn't know who I was. Late one evening, I sat by the window watching the streetlights flicker against the snow. Denver winters have a strange kind of quiet, soft, almost merciful. But that night, it felt like the city was holding its breath with me. I opened my phone again. The last message from Mom read,
"We're family, Meg. We'll get past this." Below it, a message from Dad, "You'll regret walking away from us." And from Emma, just a thumbs down emoji. I don't know which one hurt more. I scrolled higher, back to older messages. Photos I'd sent of finished projects, hoping they'd be proud. Receipts from payments I'd made for them. Voice notes of Mom thanking me, back when gratitude still existed between us. Somewhere along the way, I'd mistaken obligation for love. Maybe because growing up, that was the only kind of love I ever learned. The kind you have to earn. Tears finally came. Not loud, not violent. Just quiet streams that blurred the lights outside into soft halos. For once, I didn't try to stop them. I let myself feel every ounce of exhaustion, every disappointment, every piece of the illusion I'd been clinging to. And then, in that silence, I whispered to no one, "I can't keep doing this." The words hung in the air, fragile but real. It wasn't a declaration of anger. It was surrender, the honest kind. That night, I left my phone on the kitchen counter, turned off all the lights, and crawled under the blankets. For the first time in years, I didn't pray for things to get better. I just prayed to feel nothing.
The morning it all started to shift was ordinary. Gray sky, cold coffee, the faint buzz of my neighbor's dog barking down the hall. I was sitting at my desk, scrolling through freelance job listings I didn't have the energy to apply for, when my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in months: David Ramirez. David had been a senior designer at my old firm, one of the few people who actually noticed when I skipped lunches or stayed late to cover for others. His text read, "Hey Meg, heard you left the agency. I'm starting something new. Small interior design team, cool clients. You in?" I stared at the screen for a minute before replying. Part of me wanted to say no. I was tired, bruised, and uncertain. But another part, the one that hadn't completely died yet, whispered, "Why not?" That week, we met for coffee at a small cafe near downtown Denver. David looked the same: warm smile, flannel shirt, notebook full of sketches. He didn't ask about my family, just said, "You always carried other people's projects. Maybe it's time to carry your own." Something in me cracked open, not like the breaking I'd felt before, but like a door creaking toward light. By the next month, I was working with David's team, freelance at first, then full-time. The pay wasn't huge, but the feeling was. I'd forgotten what it was like to wake up excited about something that didn't involve fixing someone else's mess. My parents texted a few times, mostly practical things. The bank called again, your sister's behind on her bills. I didn't reply. For once, I didn't feel guilty about it. Instead, I spent my evening sketching again, designing small spaces with color and warmth. Creating beauty from emptiness, it felt symbolic somehow, like healing through art. One night, after finishing a layout for a client, I opened my laptop and started writing an email. The subject line was simple: "To my family." I typed slowly, each word deliberate. "I love you, but I can't be your solution anymore. I've spent years paying for your comfort at the cost of my own. I need to live my life now, on my terms. I'm not angry. I'm just done. Please don't contact me again about money. Take care of yourselves. Megan." My finger hovered over send for a long time. Then, I hit it. And when I did, it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. I sat there in the quiet, waiting for regret to come. It didn't. Just relief. A strange, peaceful relief that spread through me like sunlight warming cold skin. That weekend, I went hiking alone in the foothills outside Boulder.
The trail wound through pines and dry grass, the air crisp and honest. At the summit, I looked down at the city, a grid of lights and possibility, and realized something simple. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sighs. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at them, not even at myself. I'd done what I could. Now it was their turn to stand on their own. That night, back home, I lit a candle. Ironically, one of Emma's old eco-creations still gathering dust in my drawer. The flame flickered, soft and steady. And for the first time, I didn't think about who I'd lost. I thought about who I was becoming.
By late summer, the quiet I'd fought for began to feel like home. The texts from my parents slowed, then stopped. No more guilt-soaked messages, no more "we're struggling, please." Just silence, thick and strange at first, but eventually soothing, like a wound finally scabbing over. Work was going better than I'd imagined. David's startup had landed a contract redesigning a boutique hotel in Aspen, and he asked me to lead the project. I spent long days surrounded by fabrics, sketches, and blueprints, losing myself in color palettes instead of chaos. It was exhausting, but it was mine. One Friday evening, as I wrapped up a meeting, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't recognize. A message request from Emma. For a second, I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. Her message was short. "You probably don't care, but Mom and Dad are in trouble. The house is gone. They said you'd understand." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. I'd known this would happen eventually. They'd been months behind in payments long before I stopped helping. Still, part of me felt that old instinct rise. The fixer, the rescuer, the daughter who used to jump at every alarm. But that part of me was quieter now. I set the phone down and went back to my plans, tracing the outline of a window frame with my pencil until the urge passed. A few days later, Mom called. Her voice was trembling. "The bank took the house," she said. "We're staying with a friend for now. Your dad's heart isn't handling this well." There it was again, the soft manipulation, the hook hidden inside pity. But I'd learned how to spot it now. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said gently. "I hope things work out." She hesitated. "We just need a small moon, honey. Maybe 2,000 or 3,000 to get settled again." I opened my banking app, the one I used to scroll with dread. Then I typed in a transfer. $1, and added a note. "More than I owe." I hit send and ended the call. The silence afterward felt cleaner than any victory. It wasn't revenge, it was release. That weekend, David invited our small team to a cookout at his house. The backyard was full of chatter, the smell of grilled vegetables, kids chasing each other through the sprinklers. Someone handed me a drink, and I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. David raised his glass toward me. "To Megan, for saving our project and reminding us that boundaries make great design and great lives." Everyone clapped, and I felt heat rush to my face. Not embarrassment, gratitude. It was the kind of recognition that asked for nothing in return. As the sun set, I sat on the porch steps, watching the sky melt from orange to violet. The laughter behind me was easy, genuine, the opposite of what I'd left behind. No one here wanted anything but my company, and that realization felt like justice. A week later, a friend from my hometown texted me. Apparently, Emma had picked up a job at a retail store to make ends meet. My parents were renting a small apartment near the highway. I didn't gloat. I just stared at the message, then looked around my apartment, the soft light, the plants I'd finally bought, the framed art on the wall, and smiled. Their choices had led them there. Mine had led me here. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about peace. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and watched the city lights flicker through the window.
Somewhere out there, they were probably blaming me for everything, but for the first time, it didn't matter. I wasn't their provider, their apology, or their scapegoat anymore. I was just Megan. Steady, quiet, free. By November, Denver had turned silver and soft with winter. The first snow fell in quiet sheets, blanketing the streets, muting the usual city noise. From my apartment window, the world looked clean again, like it had pressed reset. I'd been with David's company for almost 6 months now. The hotel project wrapped ahead of schedule, and the client sent us handwritten thank you notes. Something small, but it felt big to me. A reminder that appreciation didn't have to be begged for. One Friday afternoon, I came home to find a package at my door. Inside was a leather-bound notebook and a note from Lena, one of my teammates. For your ideas, your calm, and the stories you tell that make the room quiet. Thought you'd like a place to keep them. I turned the notebook in my hands, running my fingers over the soft cover. It was simple, thoughtful, given freely. I sat at my desk, open to the first page, and wrote a single line. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. You get to choose who walks through. The words came easily, as if they'd been waiting. I wrote about the years I'd spent trying to buy peace, about the guilt that felt like duty, and about the night I finally said no. I wrote about freedom, how it doesn't feel like rebellion, but like coming home. Sometimes when I wrote, I thought about my family, not with anger anymore, just a kind of distant compassion, the way you might think of an old photograph, familiar but faded. Mom still sent an occasional holiday text, "Hope you're doing well." I always replied, "You too." And that was enough. I'd stopped needing closure or apologies. Some wounds don't close with words. They close with distance. One evening, I invited a few friends over for dinner. David, Lena, and a couple of others from work. We ate pasta and laughed until our stomachs hurt. No guilt, no expectations, just the simple comfort of belonging. When they left, I stood at the window again, watching snow drift under the streetlights. For a long time, I believed that family was something you were born into and bound to, forever. Now I knew better. Family is anyone who sees your worth without needing proof. I thought about all the people out there who might be sitting in small apartments like mine, staring at their phones, wondering if walking away makes them bad. So many of us are taught to equate love with endurance, to stay, to fix, to sacrifice. But real love doesn't demand that you disappear to keep others comfortable. I picked up my phone, opened the voice recorder, and started talking. Not for them, for me. For the version of myself who once thought kindness meant saying yes even when it hurt. My name is Megan Cole, and I learned that saving people who don't want to change only drowns you both. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is let go. The recording ended there, just my voice and the soft hum of the heater in the background. Maybe one day I'd share it. Maybe I already had, in a way. I closed the notebook, turned off the lights, and sat for a moment in the quiet. Outside, the city glowed beneath its white blanket, the kind of peace that only comes after a storm. I took a slow breath and whispered to the empty room, I made it through. And I had. Not as the savior my family once needed, but as the person I'd finally chosen to become.